Mainstream media, sometimes a blessing, mostly a curse. A little story I'd like to share with you, which should have made the news, but because of timing, didn't. There's a grocery store about 5 miles from here. During this so-called pandemic, they have been very proactive about social distancing. They have the arrows on the floors, limit the amount of people that come in, and one of their employees sprays down the cart handles and baskets with a light bleach solution. So this employee takes a break and leaves his bleach sprayer next to the carts. A random woman who is standing in line takes the bottle and sprays down her own cart handle. Then she snaps and starts spraying the people. Not everyone, just the people who are not wearing masks. As you can imagine, things went downhill from there. She was immediately arrested and then banned from the store for life. Now, a week ago, this would have been an interesting side piece tied to the virus. It would have made the news, but that was last week. This week, we have a law enforcement-inspired race war. Tear gas and rubber bullets will win that ratings battle every time. Who doesn't love a good riot? And no one knows how to hype up the intensity better than mainstream. CNN, which just celebrated their 40th birthday, even sent one of their remote teams in as bait. They picked a black reporter, walked their camera team right up to the police lines in Minneapolis, and stood there broadcasting, like they were exempt from the rules of riot protocol, like battlefield medics during World War I. The police, of course, grew tired of this and arrested the camera team one by one. Publicly, CNN was outraged because law enforcement had the nerve to arrest members of the press. But behind the scenes, they wanted their black reporter to take some body shots and get pinned to the ground. It's better television and better ratings, and that's one of the big media secrets. On camera, they wish for peace. Off camera, they pray for war. It's just good business. Flat Earth has given me a lot of interesting insights over the last 5 years. Every producer I have had drinks with has said basically the same words. Officially, we don't want anyone to die. Unofficially, we always want the plane to crash. Human beings are a curious bunch, and nothing intrigues us more than tragedy. As some of you know, it's not the car wreck that slows down traffic. It's all the other cars braking to catch a glance of the carnage. The media learned this way before cars were invented and has tailored their stories and headlines to maximize their effect on the general public. What makes it difficult for me is that sometimes I love the media. It's both a blessing and a curse of our civilization. I have absorbed so much of it over the years, I can see the patterns, the formulas. Media is a tool, a means to an end, and like most tools, can be used to build or destroy. Let's get some of the obvious concerns out of the way first. Is there such a thing as fake news? Officially, if you ask anyone in the media, they will tell you no. Fake news is just a concept made up by conspiracy people. If you ever hear this from someone, reply with the following. Everything on CNN is absolutely true, and everything on Fox News is absolutely true. Now, if you vote on a federal level, you're going to have a hard time agreeing with both of those statements. Why? Because every major news network is owned by a parent company, and those corporations have interests they need to protect. CNN isn't going to run a negative story about its own network, or any company tied to it. All networks are like this. And when a scandal happens with journalists themselves, that's when it gets interesting. The competing networks cover the story with focused intensity, but the host network just gets rid of the guilty party. They disappear. Bill O'Reilly had a leading show on Fox, and then one day, after a sex scandal, he was gone. No fanfare, just gone. Matt Lauer was practically an institution on NBC until his sex scandal. Then the network removed all traces of him from the building. It's like he never existed. As a viewer, it's not a very satisfying ending, but I suppose it is a form of closure. Because of the corporations that own mainstream media, it's almost impossible to get any type of objective journalism. There are a large number of topics that just aren't covered, ranging from the mildly out of bounds to uncomfortable taboos to blatant national security issues hidden in plain sight. What we get fed to us every day is just a small fraction of the truth, and those carefully selected slivers are bent and molded to serve agendas hidden behind locked doors. Rosie O'Donnell talked about Building 7 while she was a host on The View, and the network banned her from television for years. To this day, most Americans don't even know what Building 7 is. Think about that. A 50-story building collapses in New York City in broad daylight, and all anyone remembers are the two towers. Why? Because the media isn't allowed to talk about it. Behind the scenes, I've made simple test statements to different producers in media. One of them is that there are no gay leading men in Hollywood. They chuckle and say, of course there are. I say, really? Who? Then they look down and shuffle their feet. You see, the companies that own the media rights to those actors don't want to risk their audience base, and the media won't risk the potential lawsuit. It's just not worth it for the story. Again, it's a business decision. It's about money. Speaking of business, every television network has a finance department, a group that focuses on the various stock markets. These markets are a matter of fact, the world's biggest gambling houses. The media knows this, but will always encourage people to invest in stocks. Why? Because the parent companies tied to those networks have a stake in those casinos. They are publicly traded. By far, my biggest complaint about mainstream media is its almost genius ability to be consistently inconsistent. Sometimes they are blind, sometimes ignorant, sometimes both. Sometimes their hands are tied, but often the media are just complicit to a higher power. If you throw enough money their way, you can buy a story or a series of stories. Money talks. In this case, literally. During the moon missions, the networks were forced by the government to travel to the Space Center and film their broadcast from a monitor projection second generation. They all complained, but had no power to get anything more. The limit of their authority stops at the government's doorstep. They knew full well that the cyclist Lance Armstrong was cheating his way to championships, but had no way to prove it. And that went on for 7 years, until he finally confessed. Since the media is now over 90% liberal or left, they can directly challenge a Republican president on his policy because they have the numbers. If the president, however, is left, then things are more strict. Like when Joan Rivers implied that Michelle Obama was transgender. There's an interesting end to that story. You might want to look into it. They accept the money from Big Pharma and then tell people to take all vaccines, and in the same breath tell the same people that celebrities don't do weird things with their free time and money, like having orgies with minors, and possibly kill them. According to the news, human trafficking is real, but famous people don't take part in it. Hostel was just a movie series. It wasn't based on anything. Well, sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The media will also recite whatever is in the history books. Despite revisions that the woke communities have made over the years, the Revolutionary War wasn't about freedom, it was about money. The Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was also about money. And my favorite war, because it was so media-based, was the Spanish-American War. The reason why we have that fourth guy on Mount Rushmore. You remember who they are, right? Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and the other guy. Maybe this will help. Frederick Remington, the famous artist who brought to life American images of the West, was hired by newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst to illustrate the revolution erupting in Cuba. He wrote back to Hearst one day in January of 1897. "Everything is quiet, there is no trouble. There will be no war, I wish to return." Hearst sent back the now famous note, "Please remain, you furnish the pictures, and I'll furnish the war." When the USS Maine exploded in a harbor in Cuba in 1898, just a year later, Hearst newspapers soon ran a story entitled, "The warship Maine was split in two by an enemy's secret infernal machine." This was, of course, the weapons of mass destruction of its day. The notion that Spain would sink an American warship unprovoked was itself suspicious, And the claim that the Spanish destroyed the USS Maine with an explosive device was a bald-faced lie, concocted by the powers that be using media as a tool to accomplish their goals, that being the expansion of the American empire. And it worked. The U.S. now claims Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines because of that story. Don't get me wrong. The media isn't without its charms. I sometimes enjoy how every local and national station will track Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, although I thought CNN went a bit too far when they brought the Pentagon in and had a sleigh and reindeer escorted by fighter planes. But don't forget, at their core, everyone in the media is just a talking head, similar to Ron Burgundy. They will read everything that the producers put on the teleprompter and just roll with it. A perfect example of this being an Arizona weatherman who read out temperatures posted on screen that were in thousands of degrees.
We'll bring you on into the temps, and we're all doing okay. Wow, 750 degrees in Gila Bend right now. And 1,270 in Ahwatukee. Now, I'm not authorized to evacuate Ahwatukee, but this temperature seems pretty high.
Cade Creek is really...
Yeah, Cade Creek, Fountain Hills, they don't look good either. And frankly, Wickenburg is a total loss.
Oh my God.
You might as well just get out of anywhere along this 60 here. It's very warm. Surprise is starting to heat up as well at 1,300 degrees. So, again, the safe spots seem to be Chandler and Mesa. Scottsdale is doing okay so far, but, you know, you're sort of surrounded by some pretty intense heat. So, you know, again, I'm not your dad, but I would get out while you still can. I think steel boils at about this temperature, so Cade Creek, there's probably nothing left up there right now. So don't even bother looting up there. It's not going to be worth it.
Can you use the mainstream media to your advantage? Well, sure. But having a ton of money helps. We've seen this portrayed in movies over the years, from Citizen Kane to Wag the Dog, just to name a few. What hope does the common man have to compete against governments and mega corporations? I'll give you a few tips. First, remember that the people of media are lazy just like everyone else. They want easy answers and easy stories, so don't overcomplicate things. Keep it simple. Second, do their work for them. Be as detailed as you can, and that includes creating your own catchphrases and sound bites. If something resonates with them and it's not your first choice, then go with it anyway. What do I mean by this? If you're wearing a red shirt, if you like wearing red shirts, but people around you keep saying that blue is your color, then in public, wear blue. Give the people what they want. Third, make yourself available. That means give the media a way to find you. I have lost count of people saying that the interview happened because they found my phone number. You want to use the media, put yourself out there. Your name and phone number or email is fine. Producers don't want to talk with Ace of Spades 234. They want to talk to whoever is behind it. And while we're on people behind the scenes, remember that on-air personalities are rarely the ones calling the shots. Most of the time it's the producers. They choose the stories, and they are the ones that are influenced by outside parties. Last, and certainly not least, remember that mainstream media, the news, and everything related to it is just an extension of the gossip chains we grew up with. Gossip is just a part of being human. An informal exchange of information that either builds up or tears down people we know. People we aspire to be, and others we hate. All forms of media amplify all those traits, not just the obvious tabloids, but the subtle patterns that every network follows. You see them every day. Good news for celebrity, bad news for celebrity, celebrity scandal, celebrity shocker. It's the schoolyard whispers just made louder and put on screen. Never, ever underestimate the power of words, the gossip chains, and the rumor mills. The media has known for a very long time that the pen is indeed often mightier than the sword. Let's finish this with a short story from Germany that is a perfect example of what words can do. It's called The Brave Little Tailor from 1640. A tailor is preparing to eat some jam, but when flies settle on it, he kills 7 of them with one blow on his hand. He makes a belt describing the deed, reading 7 at one blow. Inspired, he sets out in the world to seek his fortune. The tailor meets a giant who assumes that 7 at one blow refers to 7 men. The giant challenges the tailor. When the giant squeezes water from a boulder, the tailor squeezes milk from cheese. The giant throws a rock far into the air and eventually lands. The tailor counters the feat by tossing a bird that flies way into the sky. The giant believed the small bird is a rock, which is thrown so far that it never lands. Later, the giant asks the tailor to help him carry a tree. The tailor directs the giant to carry the trunk while the tailor will carry the branches. Instead, the tailor climbs on, so the giant carries him as well, but it appears the tailor is supporting the branches. Unimpressed, the giant brings the tailor to the giant's home where the other giants live as well. During the night, the giant attempts to kill the tailor by bashing the bed. However, the tailor, having found the bed too large, had slept in the corner. Upon returning and seeing the tailor alive, the other giants flee in fear of the small man. The tailor enters the royal service, but the other soldiers are afraid that he will lose his temper someday, and then 7 of them might die with every blow. They tell the king that either the tailor leaves military service or they will. Afraid of being killed for sending him away, the king instead attempts to get rid of the tailor by sending him to defeat 2 giants, along with 100 horsemen, offering him half his kingdom and his daughter's hand in marriage if the tailor can kill the giants. By throwing rocks 2 giants while they sleep, the tailor provokes the pair into fighting each other until they kill each other, and at which time the tailor stabs the giants in their hearts. This goes on like this. But eventually, here's what happens. Duly impressed, the king relents, marries the tailor to the princess, and makes the tailor the ruler of half the original kingdom. Tailor's new wife hears him talking in his sleep and realizes with fury that he was merely a tailor and not a noble hero. Upon the princess's demands, the king promises to have him killed and carried off. A squire warns the tailor of the king's plan. While the king's servants are outside the door, the brave little tailor pretends to be talking in his sleep and says, "Boy, make the jacket for me and patch those trousers, or I will hit you across your ears with a yardstick. I have struck down 7 with 1 blow, killed 2 giants. Now I am supposed to be afraid of those who are standing just outside the bedroom?" The king does not try to assassinate him. The tailor lives out his days as a king. The end.